We're going to go over a bit of a video game update, just do some generic video game news that's coming up for some of the games and minor updates for all the existing games and some that are coming out shortly. It seems there is a Fallout remaster still in active development for Fallout 3. The new report has shed light on Microsoft Xbox plans for 2026 while confirming one unannounced game is still in the works. Microsoft announced last month Playground's Forza Horizon 6 coming out in May, and The Verge said that Halo campaign Evolved is tentatively targeting a release date in the summer. Gears of War E-Day, meanwhile, is set for the second half of the year. Playground's Fable is due out in fall so far currently. Microsoft wants both Gears of War and Fable to avoid GTA 6's gargantuan November launch. According to the report, the Fallout 3 remaster fans are desperate to see announced is still in active development, 3 years after it appeared in FTC documents as part of Microsoft's bid to buy Activision Blizzard. The Verge said that Bethesda is keen to ensure the game is polished enough to enjoy a successful launch similar to last year's Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion remaster, which Bethesda chief Todd Howard recently told IGN he was really pleased with. So I suspect if they're taking this long to actually develop the game, that it won't be nearly as glitchy as it was initially, which would be nice. News that Fallout 3's release is still happening will be of some comfort to fans. The Verge did not provide an update on the potential Fallout New Vegas remaster. Bethesda's space RPG Starfield, meanwhile, is reportedly set for new content as well soon, and it looks like we'll hear about the heavily rumored PlayStation 5 version as well. And Double Fine's recently revealed Kiln is coming out in April. In terms of the hardware, The Verge said Microsoft will release a new Xbox controller this year. It will reportedly include Wi-Fi connectivity to reduce Xbox cloud gaming latency. There's no suggestion Microsoft will release its next-gen Xbox this year, which tallies with recent comments from the boss of AMD. However, The Verge expressed hope that Microsoft will talk more about its next-gen console plans later this year. Last month, Xbox held an Xbox Developer Direct showcase where it revealed new information and gameplay on everything from Forza 6 to Fable. And also, keeping with Fallout 76 crossplay is still on the table for Bethesda. The game wasn't built for crossplay, but because so many of the 76 fans, I don't know how many of the 5 of them that there actually were that actually wanted crossplay, but it looks like they're getting it. When it first launched in 2018, one of the biggest issues many took with Fallout 76 was how empty the world was without NPCs. That was one of my biggest complaints as well. There were no NPCs and almost nobody was playing it, and so it was just you walking around in this endless open world, and it was annoying. And that was just one of the major problems with it. It was almost 2 years before the Wastelanders update finally brought life into Appalachia in 2020. That's 2 years without any NPCs. Nobody was playing it. In fact, there were several occasions where this game was actually free, whether it was on Steam or on the Microsoft Marketplace store built into the computer. That's not the only major issue that's constantly plagued Fallout 76 fans since the game was launched. Wasteland denizens are still dying for crossplay to be added in the game. I think crossplay would be a good idea. I don't know that Fallout 76 would be the game to try it out on because nobody likes that game. Nobody plays this game. If you're gonna put crossplay into a game, put it into Fallout 3 that you're currently in the process of redoing. That would be the place to put it. It's been a request from Fallout 76 players since the game's launch, but we are seemingly no closer to it actually happening. Players just want to travel the wasteland together, regardless of their video game platform, which seems reasonable enough. So, during a video interview with Fallout 76 creative director John Rush and production director Bill Lacoste, we asked for an update. They're looking into it, and we have plans to try to scope out what that work is going to entail for us, Rush shared with Polygon before taking the wind out of our sails. It's just not in the immediate plans for us. We know players want it. Honestly, this game is failing, so either abandon the game or give the players what they want so people will actually play this horrible game. Unfortunately, when Bethesda created Fallout 76, it was without the framework to make crossplay a reality. Adding it after the fact it turns out, is a gargantuan task for a number of reasons. Well, I'm pretty sure they actually would have to rebuild the game from the ground up, honestly, and put that aspect of the game into the code, because if you build it without it, you have to basically rebuild it to put it back in. It's huge technical hurdles that are things you tackle before release during your actual development of the product, Lacoste explained. So going back and retrofitting it to do that when you have different places that players are pointing into, and now you're having to worry about entitlements and account purchases and currency. So get rid of currency and your microtransactions. Nobody wants the microtransactions and all that nonsense. Just give the players what they want. And while players shouldn't expect it anytime soon, Bethesda hears your complaints and is not ignoring them. I pose that they actually are. What we can promise players is that we will continue to investigate, we will continue to try to establish plans to make that thing in the future. It's just not in the short term. So they tease you and say that they're going to put it in eventually. It's just not what they're working on right now. We know it's the one thing that players want with our game, but we're not going to give it to you because we'd rather focus on in-game currencies and microtransactions and purchases. And I think that is a huge failing. Alright, so now into Helldivers. Helldivers 2 armors up for its very own Star War as automatons have stolen plans for a planet-killing space station. Now, I love Helldivers 2, and this looks like it might be an interesting update. New stage in Helldivers 2 Galactic War for Democracy has begun in earnest. Spurred on by the automatons stealing blueprints for Super Earth's Star of Peace space station, in response to this rebellious action, players will have to travel back to their home planet first introduced in the original Helldivers, Cyberstan. This space station, in the wrong hands, can destroy whole planets, much like another space station you might already be familiar with. You might say that there was a war in the stars over it. As such, Helldivers 2 players have been thrust across the galaxy to stop an evil, undemocratic copy of it being built. Communists. Communists are building an intergalactic space station. Players have done the math, and it doesn't look good for the community of Helldivers 2 patriots. Users on the Helldivers 2 Reddit has tracked the Helldivers reserves, essentially a numerical count of how many lives the community has to spare when taking Cyberstan. At the current rate, these reserves may dry up before players can even take a crack at conquering Cyberstan, unless, of course, Helldivers Game 2 Master Joel leaps to the rescue. To help them do so, tanks have now been added to the game. This multi-person vehicle can be seen briefly in the announcement trailer for this update, mowing down robots, guns blazing. That's not all players have to help them push forward into robot territory. The recently released Premium War Bond provides the LAZ-16 Trident gun, as well as a huge hammer people have been using to charge in and deal serious close quarters damage with. And with Highguard's latest update will include the new Warden Ekon, who can ride himself. Ride himself? I don't like how that can be interpreted, honestly. That sounds rather dirty. The Highguard team has released another patch, again, for its live service hero shooter that nobody is still going to play because it's still a garbage game. This update includes a new Warden known as Ekon. Ekon is described as a legendary wild walker who is able to shapeshift into a direwolf. This means he doesn't need a mount, as he is the mount. So does that mean other players can ride him? Sorry. When his mentor and closest thing to family goes missing in the lost land of Highguard, there is no monster or warden this great predator will allow to stand in his way. As well as the new warden, the update which welcomes in Highguard Episode 2 also adds a new map known as Skydrift, which, as the name suggests, takes place above the clouds. From a quick glance at the artwork for this map, I get flashbacks to the Sky Islands in Legends of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, but there's more structures dotted about. Other quality of life improvements include the likes of being able to leave the party by clicking on party member's social card, dead players no longer show up in the mini-map, and more. You can check for the latest updates via these links down here below, or you can follow their progress here on X. That is not something that I personally will be doing. And while we're on the subject of shooters, Overwatch's new hero Jetpack Cat, there's the new voice actor for that, and apparently it's the same guy that was doing voices for Commander Shepard. Jennifer Hale, most famously known for Commander Shepard in the Mass Effect trilogy, has been confirmed to voice Jetpack Cat in Overwatch. The flying feline is one of 5 new heroes coming to the game on February 10th. That gives you guys 3 days to get this game and check it out, or to get ready for the game updates. The Express Tribune reported that Hale will be providing the meows for Jetpack Cat, newly renamed game. Wait, so all she's going to be doing is meowing? That's it? No words? That's going to be like the easiest contract ever, which is now just Overwatch by ditching the 2. The title change is part of a major overhaul of the online FPS. As for Hale, who also voices Ash in the game, Overwatch audio and technical director Scott Lawson stated that she did an incredible job and working with it was so much fun. On X, Hale also expressed her excitement about voicing Jetpack Cat. Okay, so she's done other voices as well, and it looks like one of the things that's happening to Overwatch is they're changing the name from Overwatch 2 to just Overwatch. The support character can heal and tow allies from the sky thanks to the obvious jetpack. As for Jetpack Cat's ultimate ability, called Catnapper, the hero can plunge down to disrupt opponents, then tether one to throw them off a ledge. So kind of like what you would do with Kirby in Smash Brothers. You'd suck them in, walk them to the edge, and spit them out. Jetpack Cat was basically a decade in the making for Overwatch. In fact, former Overwatch game director Jeff Kaplan discussed with GameSpot back in 2017 that a feline hero was part of the development for the multiplayer shooter at some point. Recently, Hale talked about the roller coaster ride of taking over as Bayonetta for the 3rd game in the action series. Hale didn't reprise her role as Samus Aran for Metroid Prime 4 after voicing the bounty hunter for the first 3 games in the sub-series. So she did the first 3 games of Samus, but not the 4th one. Alright, Square Enix will share more updates than ever before on the Final Fantasy VII Remake project that's going on this year. Square Enix is planning to share more updates than ever before on its Final Fantasy VII Remake project, according to game director Naoki Hamaguchi. This comes from a tweet posted by Hamaguchi following today's Nintendo Switch Partner Direct, during which the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth received a June release date for Switch 2 and Xbox consoles. The post, which Hamaguchi wrote in both Japanese and in English, reads as follows. We've announced that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth will launch on June 3rd with the addition of Switch 2 and Xbox. The game will be released as a full multi-platform title this year. This year, we plan to share more updates on the Final Fantasy VII Remake project than ever before. We look forward to celebrating together with even more players around the world. This is exciting news for Remake fans who have been on the edge of their seats for last few years waiting for news of the 3rd game in the trilogy, which we have yet to see at all. Honestly though, I said this when the first one came out, I do not like the idea that they split one game into 3 different games. It just seems like cash grabbing, and I don't care for it very much. Even though I was a huge fan of Final Fantasy VII when it first came out back in the day. Though Hamaguchi didn't outright say it, this feels like a tease for a reveal this year. Rebirth left the story on one heck of a cliffhanger, with players left doubting whether the game's most famous twist really took place or not. The 3rd game has a lot of work to do to land the plot plane set up by Remake and Rebirth, and it will be interesting to see how Square Enix does it. Fans have already been speculating as to what Part 3 will be called following the Remake and Rebirth titles, as well as Reunion on the recent Crisis Core remake. Popular suggestions include Reincarnation, Revival, Reawakening, Redemption, and Return. Final Fantasy VII Remake first launched in 2020. Final Fantasy VII Remake first launched in 2020. At the time, we gave it an 8 out of 10, saying that it breathes exciting new life into a classic while standing as a great RPG all its own. The game was originally a PS4 exclusive, but came to PS5 in its fancy DLC-filled form, with Final Fantasy VII Remake integrated later to PC and Nintendo Switch, and Nintendo Switch 2 as well, just last month. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was also excellent, with us giving it a 9 out of 10, saying it impressively builds off of what Remake set in motion, both as a best-in-class action RPG full of exciting challenges and awe-inspiring recreation of a world that has meant so much to so many for so long. Like I said, I am not a fan of the remakes because I don't like the fact that they split it into 3 games. Xbox is planning a summer release for Halo Remake and a late 2026 launch for Gears of War E-Day, according to this new report. A new report has claimed that Gears of War E-Day is eyeing a release window in the second half of 2026, with Halo Combat Evolved tentatively targeting a launch sometime sometime this summer. This report claims that Microsoft wants both Gears of War E-Day and Fable to dodge the launch of Grand Theft Auto 6. Understand Microsoft has a good idea of when both should launch, but it's also keen to avoid being too close to Grand Theft Auto 6's November 19th date. The report also touches on the Fallout 3 remake, which The Verge reports is an active development, and the article also states that Bethesda wants the game to reach a similar bar of quality as the Oblivion remake. Finally, The Verge reports that Double Fine's The Kiln is aiming for an April release, and the new Starfield content is due for a reveal soon. All of this comes with the caveat: don't be surprised if any of these dates change or slip, such as the reality of video game development. If the release windows are accurate, which they may very well be, then Microsoft certainly has a packed 2026. Fable, which we already know is due to launch sometime this fall, recently got a dedicated showcase in the Xbox Developer Direct. There's also Forza Horizon 6 set in Japan and landing on the 19th of May. Riftbound's first State of the Game update offers players a deeper look into the plans for 2026. Riot has released its first State of the Game update on Riftbound, a biannual blog-style post designed to keep the community informed. In it, we got a more detailed look at upcoming organized play events, teases for upcoming expansions and cards, solidified dates for sets beyond Spiritforge, and interviews with game director Dave Guskin and executive producer Changren Chai, which offer insight into what the team has learned since the game launched in October of last year. Riot previously announced in the first half of the organized play roadmap for 2026, but we now have the full picture. After Las Vegas Regional Qualifier on February 27th, fans can expect more regional qualifiers all around the US and Europe, culminating in the final regional qualifier in Riot's hometown of Los Angeles in September. If you want to check out the schedule, go ahead and pause the video here and take down the notes that you want if you want to go see any of these. The update also provided a more detailed breakdown of when to expect previews for the rest of the year's expansion starts. Unleashed previews start March 16th, Vendetta on the 22nd of June, and Radiance kicks off on September 21st. We have the full breakdown of Riftbound's 2026 release schedule with full dates and details. The most important updates come from the interviews with Guskin and Chai. State of the Game updates are intended to be transparent updates on the lessons of the Riftbound team has learned throughout its life cycle, and it's apparently they've learned many hard lessons already. To start, mechanically, unique cards from separate products like Proving Grounds will not be present moving forward. We've learned our lesson and do not plan to include mechanically unique cards in future iterations of this product, said Chai. Proving Grounds offered powerful cards not available open in the main Origins set, and with Spiritforge, we'll see reprints of those cards as a way to get those unique cards in the hands of players who may have missed out due to supply issues. The biggest issue plaguing competitive play in China currently is the dominance of Draven, Glorious Executioner, and the purple cards that make up most of the deck. Guskin states that the team's philosophy behind banning and or restricting cards is that we want to intervene at a minimal level needed to correct an emergency state, with no current plans to take action at this time, opting to see how the meta will evolve once Spiritforge launches in the US to see how it did with Origins, similar to how it did with Origins. When asked if Riot will be supporting Riftbound digitally, Chai responded that while they are aware of the interest in a digital client, their main focus is the in-person social interaction, and we do not want that to be lost. If you are a competitive player looking to attend a regional qualifier for a chance at a Best of Metal Legend card, they've outlined how limited these highly sought-after prizes will be moving forward. Best of Metal cards will be rotated out events after every 3 set releases, so the Origins, Proving Grounds Best of cards will no longer be eligible for prizing following the release of Vendetta on the 31st of July. Finally, Chai confirms that we will finally see the printing of new legends in the 3 currently unused color combinations in Vendetta. And the last update, Ubisoft reportedly cancels the rumored cooperative multiplayer Assassin's Creed game, which I talked about in a previous video that I'm currently working on releasing right now, so I'll release that one first, and then you guys can check this, you guys can kind of compare and contrast. Ubisoft Ubisoft has reportedly canceled the multiplayer cooperative Assassin's Creed title that has been in development at French studio Ubisoft Annecy. So this, from what I remember talking about in the last video that I did about it, it was kind of like a Fallout Guys kind of a style game, and nobody liked it. The devs that were working on it didn't like it. The only people that did actually enjoy it were the guys at the top, who all they saw were dollar signs in their eyes. This comes from a report by the French publication Origami, which IGN has independently translated. According to the report, the project was codenamed AC League, was originally conceived as a DLC for Assassin's Creed Shadows, and would have potentially taken place in the same feudal Japan era. Oh, so this isn't this thing that I was talking about in the last video. The game I guess it was, the game that I was talking about in the last video was not a DLC, it was an independent game, and I was told that it would play a lot like Fall Guys, which I immediately hated the idea of. The DLC would have involved 4 assassins joining forces to take on a series of scripted missions with up to 4 players that would have ultimately concluded the story told in the game's canceled season pass. You may have already heard of AC League if you pay close attention to Assassin's Creed gossip, as it was previously rumored last year. The project, Origami reports, was apparently fairly ambitious and was intended to serve as a baseline for future multiplayer features throughout the series, such as a return to a hybrid solo multiplayer style as existed in Unity or Black Flag. And Black Flag is still a rumored remake right now, though I don't hold much hope for it personally. However, as the AC League project progressed, directors at Ubisoft Annecy began to question whether it made sense to attach League to Shadows, as they worried it would take too long to make, and came up with a different plan that turned it into a small, standalone title borrowing pieces of the Assassin's Creed Shadows open world. Development on this progressed with an intended invite-only alpha planned for May of 2026. Unfortunately, AC League was allegedly just the latest victim of the ongoing upheaval at Ubisoft for several months now. The company has been undergoing a massive restructure along with major cost-cutting measures and reorganizing its creative houses. It was to this restructuring that AC League fell victim, with leadership at Ubisoft being informed just last week that AC League was being cancelled. However, there's still a sliver of hope for the project. Apparently, a handful of employees have been selected to transfer the technical advancements the team made back into the company's proprietary Anvil engine, with the goal of eventually making it easier to add replayable multiplayer modes to future Assassin's Creed titles that would be less expensive to develop. Unfortunately, that leaves more than a quarter of 270 individuals working at Annecy without a project at the moment, leaving a lot of lingering anxiety that layoffs may be coming next. Well, we already know they're coming. I talked about this in 2 separate videos previous to this. Ubisoft declined request for comment. Alright, so I believe that takes us to the end of the video game updates. I'll be covering some other things as well coming up soon. I do appreciate y'all coming and checking out the video. Make sure to leave a like and be sure to subscribe later, everybody.